We are friendly here, aren't we, everybody? Who said no there? Yeah, we are. We're very friendly in the Northeast.
Yeah,
so,
you.
what I'd like to do...
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I have a friend in the audience. Dee is... Where are you, Dee? Where are you? Hey, there you go. How you doing? You wanted me to wave. There it is. I've waved.
So as usual with the Q&As, we'll have a little bit of a chat about various programmes and things, about Seth's career, and then we'll throw it open to yourselves to ask those, what I like to say, in-depth questions, because they normally are in-depth questions from the fans.
They usually are, yes. Usually quite surprising and pretty good.
Yeah, so I want to just take you back to when you first started acting, what got you into acting, and your inspirations to get into acting when you were younger.
I was pretty much a latchkey kid, which means that my mother worked at least 16 hours a day. So the television is kind of what was my babysitter. I used to come home and my sister would make us dinner, but she's only a few years older than me, so it was usually terrible. And one of the ways that we would get past the dinner was watching The $6 Million Man. I fell in love with the idea of storytelling, of being other people, of pretending to be a man with a bionic arm and bionic legs, or pretending to be whatever it may have been. And then I found out that was actually a profession, and it was something that I could train for and study for. So that's what I did.
Did you have the action figure?
I did.
Did anybody have the action figure here?
You had the action figure
with the roll-up arm?
The magnifying glass eye, so you could look through it.
And you pressed his arm and it lifted the boulder.
Yes. And it had the removable little bionic bicep to it.
Yeah, I wish I'd kept mine. I don't know where it went.
It would be worth about $15,000 now.
Is it now?
Something ridiculous like that, yeah.
I want to cry. I really want to cry. I took off the box and everything. So, your first introduction into TV, when was that and what was it again, please?
It was The Cosby Show. Way back when The Cosby Show and The Simpsons were fighting for the #1 status on American television.
Wow. Not better great introduction into television than that,
no,
wasn't
it was the #1 show in the country when I got on it. And I've been, strangely enough, I've been fortunate enough to be on a few shows that have been the #1 shows in America.
Now we're going to talk. I'm going to talk about Walking Dead a little bit later, but I just wanted to talk about some other obviously franchises and television shows that you've been in. I want to talk about The Wire first, at Ellis Carver, because obviously now a movie, movies as well. What was that like working on that set and with our very own Idris Elba, of course?
Yeah, the Idris, yes. The Wire was a fantastic job. It remains one of my favorite roles and jobs ever. When we were shooting it, not many people were watching it, so I think it gave the writing team an opportunity to explore the characters and tell the story at the pace that they wanted to, because they were like, well, this isn't something that we've got to do certain things to keep the audience attracted to. The audience that's watching this wants to see whatever it is we're doing. So we actually had the chance, which has not been my experience in television since. Everything's been kind of rushed to get it done before a production date. So The Wire was a show that we took our time filming, and I think it shows in the quality of the piece.
The storytelling in that program is especially brilliant, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
The storytelling. Obviously, you've played a lot of different. I want to touch on because Clayton Hughes, because you work with Ernie Hudson.
Yes.
Now, I've got some friends who know Ernie. Has anybody met Ernie Hudson before from Ghostbusters? Well, he's a very nice man, isn't he? Wonderful, warm, nice man. What was that like working on that and that character that you portrayed in that?
It was great. He was very generous, Ernie was, and was up for any bizarre ideas that I had, and I had quite a few bizarre ideas because I thought the character was a little crazy, which he turned out to be just a little left of center. So Ernie was a very generous and very much like a mentor figure. He got me on my first radio show with him as well, which was, wild. We flew down to Washington, D.C., and suddenly I was on this, I guess it would have been like what would be a podcast nowadays. It was a late-night talk show about Oz. And for that, I'll forever be grateful for him for inviting me along,
And moving on, we've got Teen Wolf. I mean, Teen Wolf for me, as probably the same age as me, the film. It was the film, wasn't it? We grew up with in the 80s, wasn't it? And then obviously a TV series. What was it like getting that part? I mean, it had that history of the film behind it. And,
it did.
And of course,
it did.
The TV.
And then it was its own little venture. And Teen Wolf was great. I was doing both Teen Wolf and The Walking Dead at the same time. So I would do 4 episodes of The Walking Dead and then fly to Los Angeles and do 2 episodes of Teen Wolf and then fly back to Atlanta and do another 4 episodes of The Walking Dead. And I did that for about 2.5, maybe 3 years. And one of the things about working on Teen Wolf was that I felt it kept me young, working with the kids. I mean, they were silly. They would fart on each other before takes, and and it was a very light set, and then I would go to a very dark set in The Walking Dead. So it helped to keep me kind of young and invigorated and refreshed.
Children are very truthful, though. They just say how it is.
They just say how it is.
They say how it is, even on a set, do they?
Yes.
Is that what they're like on set as well?
Pretty much,
Right.
yes. And they were empowered to do so. It was their show.
Okay. So obviously The Walking Dead is such a huge franchise, and obviously the new adaptations and the new series coming out. It's always been reinvented. How did that come about? And obviously, Father Stokes, how did that come out?
Interestingly enough, at least to me anyhow, you might find it completely boring, but Scott Gimple and Robert Kirkman were big fans of The Wire. So I auditioned for Scott Gimple. It was just he and I and someone videotaping me in the room, and he had written some sides, which are the script, the little scenes from the episode, and he had made them up, and it was about a guidance counselor in high school who had a student come to him and say that he was going to shoot up his classroom, and the guidance counselor didn't tell anyone, thought the student was just venting. And the kid comes in and kills like half the class. And so that was the terrible secret that this guidance counselor was holding on to. And he's confronted by the student's sister. And I guess that was kind of like a parallel scene to Father Gabriel's locking his congregation out of the church and having that horrible secret that he had taken with him after they were all killed. So I didn't know what I was auditioning for. I wasn't watching The Walking Dead at that point, and I thought I was going to be playing a teacher. So I then started doing research on on teachers and guidance counselors, and they're like, no, you're actually going to be playing the priest. Here, someone send him a copy of the, of the script so he knows who he's playing. And then from there, it didn't say what denomination the priest was. So I took the next month that I had after I was cast and went to different churches each Sunday to try to find out whether he was a Catholic priest, was he an Episcopalian priest, was he a Baptist minister. None of that was really specified in the comic book. And we only really addressed that later on, I guess, when they wanted to have a sex scene, and then they said he's Episcopalian, so it's possible.
So I mean, that's a part of your job as an actor, isn't it? You find yourself doing research outside of the role to make sure you've got that role right, and that's...
Yes, you want to do the research because if you're playing people with real professions, you want to do them justice. You don't want to get up there and be making stuff up that they don't have to do or that they don't have to deal with. You want to know what they have to go through on a daily basis to see if that can inform the dialogue that you're given as the character and see whether it rings true or not to what they're supposed to be. And you can't really have those kinds of conversations with the writers or creative team if you haven't done your research. But, research is tedious and it's not very glamorous, and a lot of people don't like to do it.
It's becoming more method, isn't it? You're becoming method there because you are that specific person.
That was my training and at the High School of Performing Arts and at SUNY Purchase where I went. I trained as more of a method actor. And when I was younger, I would really go method on things. And then the older I got, I was like, maybe I don't need to run 26 miles a day because I'm playing a marathon runner. Maybe I'll just lose 5 pounds.
I mean, that character, Father Stokes, he's one of those characters in it. He does go through a real journey because you watch him at the start and he's a father, and then you find out this backstory of what he did, and then the other side to him comes out, and you go, Whoa, and then what I found from him was he just changes into this, well, not warrior, but this hard exterior comes out, you know, where he's up for the fight, isn't he?
Yes, he is. It was interesting because it was not something that they told me that they had plans for the character on doing. I was finding that out kind of in real time by reading the script and like, oh, he's shooting people in the head as he sermonizes over them. Okay, that's new. Let's try and justify that. And I would go back and hope that the performance I'd been giving up to that point would support that kind of shift in the character. And then they just kept coming and they just kept coming. And I was like, well, I'm just along for the ride at this point.
And the weapon training as well. I mean, he's quite handy.
Yes.
He's quite handy with his hands.
The weapons training was cool. They were very good about that with The Walking Dead. They were all about teaching you how to kill people.
Yeah. So what was it like walking on set for the first time? I mean, you're coming like the Doctor Who guys. You know, we're speaking about coming on set to a thing that's known. It was known already by that time. You know,
it was
starting
a
to
runaway train at that point.
Yeah, it was
season
big.
5. Yeah, it was surreal because I had spent the weekend before the Monday I was shooting watching seasons 1 through 4. Like I auditioned on Wednesday. Got a call on Thursday saying that they were checking my availability. On Friday, I got the call that I had been offered the role and that it'd start shooting on Monday. And I'd never seen the show. So I watched seasons 1 through 4 on Saturday and Sunday. And then Monday morning, I'm on the top of the rock screaming. And then all these comic book characters come out of the woods. And I did have a moment, thankfully it didn't make the show. I did have a moment of... you know, where it was like, this is really, really, really funny that I am actually a part of this show I was just watching 72 hours ago.
Yeah. What's it like being on set with, obviously, people that are highly pathetic, made up? I mean, it's pretty... I've seen some of these people close up.
Yes.
It's pretty real stuff, isn't it?
It is, and it's a little easier to get into character when for me, when I've got the costume on, is the final piece. For some people it's makeup, for some people it's just reading the script. But when it all comes together for me is when I put the final costume piece on. So seeing everybody else in their costume pieces and characters makes it a lot easier to believe that you're immersed in the world because you actually are.
When did you get scripts? How did you find the script? Did you get it
we
a long
got
time
the
before?
scripts a week before we shot them. Often 4 days before we shot them.
Mm-hmm. Had you been familiar with any Frank Darabont's stuff? Because this guy's
I had only seen...
His work as a
yeah,
yeah,
I'd seen The Shawshank Redemption, and I think maybe a Stephen King movie. He did
He did The Fly, The Green Mile.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. No, I wasn't that familiar with his work. I definitely didn't know it from a television perspective because I hadn't been watching the TV show. I didn't know what other shows he may have adapted and created for TV. So, no, I didn't know.
What's your favourite memory from working on that series? And have you watched the new spin-offs yet?
I've seen some of the ones who live. I haven't seen The Dead City with Maggie and Negan yet. Norman insisted that I watch the Daryl Dixon, so I had to watch. I was like, look, man, I mean, I like you a lot, Norman, but Daryl is not my favorite character. I don't know if I'm going to be watching a Daryl show. And he's like, dude, it's like the most beautiful sets ever. And it's like so different, man. It's other, man. You got to watch it, dude. You got to watch it or I'm going to erase your number. I'm like, oh. I guess watching it.
Good. Have we got any questions for Seth today? I'm presuming we're going to have a few. We'll go to this lady here.
Hi.
If you could have played any other character in the Walking Dead franchise, who would you have picked and why?
Carol, because I think that she has the next closest, biggest character arc from Father Gabriel. I mean, from when we first meet her and she's the beaten housewife to where we leave her, you know, on her new adventures on the Darrow Dixon show, soon to come. I think she'd gone through about 75 degrees of different people, you know, and it's similar to Father Gabriel's arc where he's very far away from where he began. So Carol. Plus, it'd be interesting to play a white woman, I think. The makeup would take a while, but we'd get it done.
Hiya. The Walking Dead's full of spoilers. Have you ever nearly spoiled anything?
I'm sorry, The Walking Dead what?
The Walking Dead's full of spoilers. Have you ever nearly spoiled something?
No, I have never really spoiled anything because I never really tried to find out what was happening. I was only really paying attention to what I had to do and how the story reflected. Everything was seen through Father Gabriel's eyes and my thinking. So I didn't really care what was happening with the other characters enough to know, enough to then give away a secret.
Hi. What is your most memorable scene or favorite scene from The Walking Dead?
My personal favorite scene is not a scene involving Father Gabriel. My favorite scene that I got to play was in the first episode that I did in season 5. We're in the waterlogged food bank when it's about 3 feet of water and you've got the bloated walkers. That was my favorite scene to play. But my favorite scene to watch when I was watching it, that hurts, was when Rick bit the guy's throat out when they were going to rape Carl. I actually jumped off my couch screaming, "Fucking right, Rick!" I was like, I gotta take a pause. I gotta go to the kitchen and get some tea and calm down or something. That was my favorite scene.
Yeah, in The Walking Dead, how did you feel about the way it ended? And if you had the chance to rewrite it, how would you end the show?
I was fine with the way it ended because Father Gabriel was alive. That was enough for me. The fact that he was left in charge of Alexandria and had a position of power and respect was even, better for me. So I don't think I would change anything. I might have kept Rosita alive, just because I thought that that character still had a great deal of development to do. I think for a while they made her kind of like the sex symbol, and didn't really do the character justice. And then somewhere around seasons 8 or 9, she started to have a lot more colors to the character and a lot more depth. So I thought that that's something that they probably could have explored more and done away with just the skimpy short seasons,
Hi. In the scene where Negan kills Glenn, who would you have preferred to kill rather than Glenn? Or are you not allowed to say that?
You're assuming that had a problem with him killing Glenn.
Nice.
Hey, Claire. Well, you found with someone. All right.
What role was your favorite to play?
My favorite role to play, I think, is Sergeant Carver from The Wire. Sergeant Ellis Carver from The Wire. It's probably also because of the time of my life when I was doing it. I was young and naive enough to believe that that anything was possible in the entertainment industry, and I had a kind of reckless fearlessness playing that role that I've since kind of lost in getting older and realizing that I wanted to be hired for other things. So I think it's Sergeant Carver on The Wire.
How did you feel? Oh, where does this go? Oh, it's okay. How did you feel about the way your character ended in Oz? I think this microphone's working.
About how my character ended in Oz? Oh, yes, Oz. I thought that was a great ending. I thought it was very poetic, for him to die in the same way that his father did when he was, when he first came on the show, looking to find out who killed his father and what have you, and to end up being shanked to death in the prison the same way that his father was. I thought was kind of a similar to Father Gabriel's character arc on The Walking Dead, where it just kind of came full circle,
What was the question?
I like the Oz question.
Who was the saddest death in The Walking Dead?
Herschel. Herschel was the saddest death on The Walking Dead to me. Thank you.
If Father Gabriel was to have a sequel spin-off with another character, who would you want to be in the sequel with?
I would like to see a spin-off with Father Gabriel, Eugene, and Aaron. I think that they'd make an interesting triumvirate of characters.
Hi. What was it like getting the call to return as Gabriel in the spin-off?
I'm sorry, say again?
What was it like getting the call to return as Gabriel in the new spin-off?
Oh, it was interesting. I thought that Scott Gimple had called me up just to check on me and how life was going. So I spent about 45 minutes telling him all about what was happening in my life. And he finally went, right, so the reason I'm calling... And then he proposed the idea of Father Gabriel coming back and asked me if I'd be up for it, and I was totally up for it. I loved working with Pollyanna McIntosh, who played Jadis/Anne, and I was excited to know that my scenes would just be with her, not with Rick and Michonne or anything else, because I figured that would not end well for Father Gabriel, and for some reason I figured he'd be safer in Jadis's hands, though. For a moment there, he wasn't. So I was very excited by it. But yeah, I thought the call was about something else. I talked this poor man's ear off for like close to an hour.
Have we got one more question for Seth? We're okay? Oh, we've got one there. I'll come to you. We'll have the two, then we'll... Do you want to ask one as well? Somebody else.
Hello. Hi. Who was the favourite person that you worked with on The Walking Dead? Like, not the character, like the actual actors?
Andrew Lincoln and Josh McDermott were my favorite actors to work with, mostly because they stayed in character all the time. So I was actually a little freaked out the first time I heard Andrew Lincoln's real voice at like a cast dinner, maybe 6 weeks after I met him, And he comes and he's talking to me like this here then. I'm like, who the hell are you? Where's Andrew Lincoln? Yeah.
Hi. I was just wondering, how did it go when you had to film the scenes all covered in zombie guts, which is why you ended up with your infected eye?
Yes, I did not like the zombie guts. The zombie guts were a mixture of various glues, food coloring, and Hershey syrup. That's how they make blood for the camera. Hershey syrup and a little food dye, and it looks like blood. And the glue was to keep it, glue and wax was to keep it stuck to the ponchos that we had. However, the Hershey syrup attracted fruit flies. So whenever I left my trailer in the 94-degree Atlanta, Georgian heat, I was surrounded by fruit flies. So I'm sweating, and they're sticking to me. And I felt like Pigpen from the Charlie Brown comic books with just a cloud of dust and dirt. It was nasty, nasty. And I hope to never wear a meat poncho again.
That's what's called suffering for your art, isn't it? What they say in the industry. Just finally, I want to touch on, I was speaking to the Doctor Who gang about how they have a family on set. Everybody becomes a family because you're there every day for months, years on end. What was it like, your final scene, your final day on set? And have you kept in contact with people since you've left that?
I've kept in contact with a few people. I've kept in contact with Josh McDermott and with Norman Reedus, mostly because Norman and I live in New York City. And Josh and I were just built a friendship that's lasted. Whenever I see them, it's like I'm running into family members. As far as what I was going through my last days on set, I'm going to save that for the autobiography, I think.
Well, thank you, everybody. He's a wonderful guest, isn't he? Thank you, Seth, for coming over. We wish you a safe travel back. When are you going back? You're going back on?
Monday. I'm going back Monday.
Have a safe travel back. Okay, Seth Gilliam, everybody.